Today, we're unpacking the Midnight Cycle, 3 tales of laundromat terror. We're going to walk through the deeply unsettling, true accounts of a 35-year-old guy who found out the hard way how totally mundane, late-night chores can just flip into sheer psychological terror. Through these 3 distinct events, our narrator documents how an everyday task morphed into an absolute nightmare of isolation and vulnerability.
And it really centers around this chilling statement. It completely shatters that false illusion of safety we all kind of feel in bright public spaces, you know? When we're standing there bathed in harsh fluorescent lights, we just assume we're secure. But listen to this realization. He wasn't just in danger, he was being actively documented. It completely shifts the paradigm from just some random creepy encounter to premeditated, calculated observation.
So, we start our analysis in a scenario most of us can absolutely relate to. You're seeking a little solitude at 2 a.m., accompanied by nothing but the calming white noise and the rhythmic humming of washing machines. The narrator actually described this environment as a sanctuary. It's the perfect setup, right? A baseline of comfort and isolation that makes the horrors about to unfold just that much worse.
Okay, let's move right into our first localized case study. Tale 1, The Mirror Image, focusing on the psychological threat.
Our narrator finds himself in a laundromat on the edge of the industrial district. Picture the architecture here. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls, rendering anyone inside completely visible from the street. The whole place is lit by these flickering fluorescent lights, and inside, there's only one other person. But the detail that throws up an immediate red flag is the stranger's clothing. He's wearing a heavy rain poncho, despite the fact that it is a crystal-clear night sky outside. He isn't even washing anything. He's just intensely staring at the spinning drum of the narrator's washing machine.
So the narrator tries to just ignore the guy and starts folding his laundry. But then, he hears the sound of fabric hitting a table right behind him. He looks up into the glass reflection and realizes the stranger is standing directly behind him. And here is where it gets incredibly bizarre. When the narrator smooths a shirt, the stranger smooths the air. When the narrator folds a pair of jeans, the stranger folds absolutely nothing. He is perfectly, exactly matching the rhythmic arc of the narrator's hands. It's like a twisted pantomime.
Obviously, the tension escalates dramatically. The narrator decides to test the stranger's intentions, so he walks to the back to buy detergent. And sure enough, the stranger follows, matching his pace perfectly with his slow, deliberate breathing. But the true psychological break happens when the narrator finally reaches for his keys to leave. From the dark back office, he hears whispers. But it's this deeply disturbing audio anomaly. It's a high-pitched plea alternating with a deep, guttural snarl, all being produced by a single person doing 2 entirely distinct voices at the exact same time. Naturally, the narrator bolts for the door. As he drives away, he glances back and sees the stranger just standing there against the glass. He isn't angry, he isn't chasing him. He's just wearing this knowing, empty grin, and he's continuing to rhythmically fold the thin air, exactly where the narrator's clothes had been sitting just moments before. I mean, it is a literal masterclass in psychological intimidation.
And things somehow only escalate from there. Let's look at Tale 2, the logbook, which shifts us into premeditated stalking.
The setting for this next encounter shifts to what's described as a fishbowl architecture. Because it's pitch black outside and brilliantly illuminated inside, the windows essentially act like one-way mirrors. The occupants inside are basically on a lit stage, completely blind to the dark parking lot. While waiting for his laundry, the narrator spots a terrifying anomaly. A perfectly still silhouette in a long coat standing under a dead streetlight across the street, just watching the windows. Seeking the safety of employee, the narrator heads to the dimmed back office. But he doesn't find anyone to help him. Instead, he finds this horrifying piece of physical evidence just resting on a back folding table. It's a torn piece of a laundry receipt, and written on the back in messy ink, the make, model, and exact license plate number of the narrator's own car. This confirms the encounter is absolutely not random. He was specifically targeted.
So the crucial point to take away here is this number right here, 3. The back of that torn receipt didn't just have vehicle information. It listed the exact times the narrator had arrived at this specific laundromat for the last 3 consecutive weeks. The predator outside hadn't just stumbled upon him, they had been meticulously logging his routine, studying his habits, and essentially just waiting for the right moment.
As you can imagine, pure panic sets in. The narrator looks back at the front window, and the silhouette has crossed the street.
His face is pressed directly against the glass, mouth wide open in this silent, jagged scream. And then he hears a metallic rattle from the back door. Someone is sliding a key into the back deadbolt. He is literally being surrounded, forcing him to hit the emergency release on the front door and just sprint to safety.
The police were called, but they never caught the stalker. However, what they found inside serves as a terrifying real-life police evidence board. Left sitting right on top of the narrator's half-dried laundry were two items, a roll of duct tape and a pair of blue latex gloves. The visual evidence of the predator's intended plan was left right exactly where the narrator was supposed to be standing.
Which brings us to our final, terrifying climax. Tale 3, The Lint Trap, where we see a physical invasion. So in this last account, the narrator is visiting a bare-bones, entirely automated building where the owner is rarely even present. He notes that the environment feels unusually heavy. While waiting on a tumbling dryer in this mostly empty building, he starts hearing rustling sounds coming from the ceiling vents above. At first, he just dismisses it as rats. That is, until a small piece of drywall falls directly onto his shoulder. Looking up, he notices a large vent cover is askew, and he gets that undeniable, distinct sensation of eyes peering down at him from the darkness above.
Rushing to grab his laundry and get out of there, the narrator opens his dryer only to feel his stomach just completely drop. His clothes are completely gone. In their place, inside the metal drum sits a single yellow flower and a handwritten note that reads, "We like the smell of your detergent." Think about that. The predator hasn't just been watching him, they've directly interacted with his personal belongings while his back was turned.
The narrator completely panics and sprints for the front door. But the trap has suddenly been sprung. The exit is barricaded. A heavy industrial chair has been jammed under the door handle from the outside. The horrifying realization sets in fast. The narrator is completely locked inside this isolated room with whoever or whatever is hiding up in the ceiling.
And then the horror becomes entirely visceral. Right above the folding table, a heavy boot protrudes from the askew vent. Slowly, a man begins to lower himself down into the laundromat. The narrator describes his skin as the color of wet ash, and his eyes are completely void of any recognizable human emotion. The hidden observer has officially breached the sanctuary. Operating on pure adrenaline, the narrator grabs a heavy detergent bottle and hurls it directly at the intruder, screaming for help. But the crazy part? The intruder doesn't flinch, doesn't yell, and doesn't retreat. He simply smiles at the narrator and whispers this incredibly jarring two-word line, "Almost done."
Fortunately, a silent alarm triggered during the chaos brings the owner and the police just in time, causing the ash-skinned man to vanish back up into the crawlspace. But what the police discover above the ceiling tiles is a truly horrifying reality. They find a literal nest in the crawlspace containing discarded food wrappers, a sleeping bag, and dozens of Polaroid photos of various people folding their laundry. This predator hadn't just climbed up there for the night. He had been living there, quietly watching from above for a very long time. The vital takeaway from this explainer, drawing directly from the narrator's own concluding thoughts, is a crystal-clear warning about nighttime isolation. You know, mundane spaces that feel safe purely because they're brightly lit can actually serve as stages for unseen observers. The architecture of our everyday lives often features blind spots we just ignore until it's too late. The instruction here is absolute. If you can help it, never go alone. So we'll leave you with this final thought as we wrap up today's analysis. The next time you find yourself running a late-night errand, enjoying the quiet hum of the machines and the solitude of the hour, maybe take a second look at the reflections in the glass. Check the vents above you. Because, while your attention is entirely focused on separating your whites and darks, you really have to ask yourself, who is watching you? Thanks for joining me and stay safe out there.